can make a true difference, not just in our nation, Commonwealth, in our communities, and our homes. So we welcome all of the people to the People's House, the place where legislators come and we make laws. The oldest legislative body in the Western Hemisphere. We welcome you and we're glad you're here to hear about what we have to say today in terms of Virginians for Reconciliation. You'll hear from me later, and at this point, I would welcome to the podium my good friend, one who deserves our applause, one who has worked just tirelessly and unwavering in helping to bring people together across this Commonwealth to the understanding of what real reconciliation looks like and how we move forward to make it happen. None other than the former governor.
For the Richmond Slave Trail and the profound moving experience that is. And so glad to have you here, and thanks for your leadership in putting this group together. Dolores,
Thank you, Governor, and again, you know, it is at this moment in time that we truly have an opportunity to make a paradigm shift and to live up to the true creed of our nation and to ensure equal justice for all. But in order to accomplish this goal, we must be able to have a real dialogue, and I call it truth and reconciliation, about the history and the existence of racism. But not just racism, it's sexism, anti-Semitism, and every other ism that creates injustices in this country. When you think about racism, I think about the origin of this ideology that was birthed with the founding of America through this peculiar institution called slavery. Slavery defined the nature and limits of American liberty for some and enslavement for others. It's influenced the creation and the development of the major political and social institutions of the nation. It was also the cornerstone of America's prosperity that solidified economic security for the dominating race while simultaneously creating impossible hurdles for the basic survivors of enslaved Africans and African Americans. These challenges have continued to impact areas of politics, education, employment, generational wealth, voting rights, and many other areas necessary for equal and a just society. The question is, what can government do? If you just look at the systemic faces of racism, of injustice and prejudice and anti-Semitism and other ideologies of superiority, that for centuries have had a ripple effect in the origin of American existence. It was the ideology of superiority and supremacy that was used to perpetuate and justify a behavior that continued to sustain its deep roots in this the land of democracy. So what can government do? What can leaders do of every walk of life? But particularly government. And I surmise that since the manifestation of systemic racism was deliberately created, perpetuated, and sustained by government through explicit laws, policies, procedures, programs, and different forms of intimidation, it is government that must be intentional and deliberate in the eradication and the elimination and the repealing of these barriers that have been caused divisiveness in our society. First, we must acknowledge the injustice, and then there must be acceptance of responsibility. Yes, meaningful dialogue, truth, authentic truth, and proactive change. We would not be able to resolve this plague, what has plagued America, unless we do it that way. So the Task Force Virginia for Reconciliation is committed to identify the deep roots of racial division in this Commonwealth We're committed to planting a new and different ideology that will reflect the true beauty of our democracy. All men and women are created equal and have the unalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is the utmost importance for leaders to step forward to demonstrate positive solutions. And if we as leaders fail, if we fail to accept the responsibility to lead in the area of truth and reconciliation and civility, then the people will be slow in moving forward with positive change. For is bold braveness to step up and declare what was wrong. We want to live right. Thank you for being here.
Governor Northam, Speaker Cox, thank you everyone for showing up today. As the mayor of the great city of Richmond, we have a special place, obviously, in the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Enslaved Africans, as you all know, built much of this country and built this city. They were here 400 years ago at the founding of our nation. And during the 19th century, Richmond, primarily the area not too far from here in Shockoe Bottom, was the epicenter of the domestic slave trade, where thousands of men, women, and children were dehumanized, shipped like cargo, then bought and sold as commodities. Because we must never forget, my administration is currently working to ensure that the history occurred in Shockoe Bottom is properly acknowledged and memorialized, that people who were forced to be enslaved are remembered and honored, and that we carry on their spirit of strength, resilience, and we work to ensure fair, equitable, just opportunities for those within our society today who continue to be marginalized. But if we wish to permanently uproot and dismantle these racial inequities and injustices, we must also at the same time move forward towards healing and atonement. That is why I'm thankful for Governor Northam and Governor McDonald and the other leaders and citizens of the Commonwealth for advancing this day in the group Virginians for Reconciliation and Civility. Yes, the physical chains are gone, but we all know that many people of color today are still bound by the chains of poverty, inadequate access to health care, and shut out from opportunity by the criminal justice system. They have been demonized by leaders peddling the politics of fear, content to preside over the loss of civility in our public discourse to advance tribalism, nationalism, rather than community. That's why today's event is apropos, appropriate, because of the upcoming annual holiday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and that these are important reminders that we still need for all of us to come together and not break our bonds. To recognize that we have more in common than we have difference, and to understand that our differences and our diversity can be a source of strength that advances our nation to a more perfect union. A just and equitable place where disagreements exist without destroying our capacity to reach each understanding and make progress here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. We here in the city of Richmond work every day to build one Richmond. That is, no matter who you are, what color your skin may be, how much money you may have in your pocket, who you pray to, or who you choose to love, that you can live out your God-given talent right here in our city. We would love to extend that same opportunity to those who live in the Commonwealth of Virginia as well. That can only be done by working collaboratively, being in uncomfortable situations and having difficult conversations. And that's what we plan to do here in the city of Richmond, continue to do. That's why we join the Commonwealth as well and proclaiming this year a year of reconciliation and civility, to have the difficult discussions about yesterday, but also talk about.
You guys heard that. It's been a great audience. I am the last speaker, and I'm going to be brief. You guys have been great. Most of the speakers here today are representing either the government sphere or the faith sphere, and I'm here today to represent the power of individual citizens as it relates to racial reconciliation. And I'm doing so because I may be the least likely person to be here. Not only am I not an elected official or a reverend or a civil rights leader, but also when it comes to issues of race, I got a really late start. I was raised in the South by an amazing family, but I don't ever recall having a significant conversation about race growing up. In my very homogenous community, we had the luxury simply to not discuss it. As my professional life went on, I was very fortunate to work on civil rights issues like the restoration of voting rights as Secretary of the Commonwealth, and was part of the governor's court team on issues dealing with race. And yes, I was so curious about Richmond's complex racial history that my husband and I moved our 3 kids into a all-black, almost neighborhood called Highland Park right up the street. I wanted my kids to know what it felt like to be in the minority, and we did, by a lot. So I'm very grateful today to be here simply as a private citizen, a wife, a mom, and an individual that represents where the grassroots power lies when it comes to issues of race. And the grassroots hat that I'm wearing today is one of the key components to the success of this initiative. While every elected leader does have a lot of power, and Delegate McQuinn, I thought you did a great job of outlining all of those things that the government can do. Everyone in government knows that when it comes to challenging social issues like race, the true problem solvers can't just be public servants. It's also going to take an army of private ones. Everybody can read a book. Most everybody can walk the slave trail. And there are a bunch of activities that people from all walks of life can engage in. Living in Highland Park, along with my own personal reading and research, opened my eyes and ears to the very challenges that we're discussing here today. And not just the well-known ones of days past, but ones that still happen. It's been pointed out to me lovingly by my friends of color that I've never been followed by security guards in a store. I've never been turned down for a loan because of my skin. And the talks that I have with my kids about getting stopped by police are very different than the ones given by Black mothers all across the Commonwealth. While the events in Charlottesville may have been a very public example of Virginia's challenges with race, the truth is, we see evidence of them every day if we're looking. I put off learning about issues of race for years, and as I reflect back on why, the answer is simple, but not easy to admit. I was afraid. I was afraid of appearing uninformed. I was afraid of saying something ignorant. I was afraid of offending someone. So I put off those not because I was afraid of someone who necessarily was different than me. What I learned, though, by engaging in this topic, and again, I'm so grateful for Governor McDonnell's effort on this, for David Bailey, for all the people that are here today. The risk of truth-telling, the hard work that entails is worth it. The hard work of truth listening is worth it as well. The humility and the empathy that it takes to step into this arena are also worth it. They're worth it most of all because every human being deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. But they're also worth it because I want to have a good answer for our kids, and I want all of us to have a good answer for our kids when they ask us at this point in history what we did to make things better. And I know Virginia can do better. I'm so delighted to be part of this team, and I hope everyone here today will join us. Thank you for the press for getting the word out, that this coalition will, with lots of patience and grace, seek to be better and to do better. We will now take questions from the press, if there are any. I know we've gone so late, so